Hello there, trick-or-treaters. You did it. You made it through the summer. Well, if you make it through tonight. Tonight is our last meeting here at the campfire, which is good, because it's getting hot. This week, Michael from Witching Season Films. Michael, a lover of all things Halloween, creepy, scary, has come up with his own creepy concoction just for us. So, on this last evening at the campfire, I say, take it away, Michael.
So I'm going to tell you a story, a true story, that happened to me a few years ago. And just to foreshadow this, I think it's important to note that I'm not the type of person who necessarily even believes in ghosts or knows what I believe in terms of the paranormal. I'm definitely open to the idea, and I find it fascinating, and I'd love to see a ghost. I'd love to have an experience like that. But this story is the closest that I've come to something like that. So a few years ago, when my now wife Sadie and I were first dating, we used to spend quite a bit of time at my parents' place when I used to live there, and we got into the habit of staying up pretty late and hanging out late into the night. And at the time, I was actually working on a film project where I was up late doing edits throughout the night, and Sadie would often fall asleep, and I would wake her up in the early morning hours and take her home. And one day, as we were driving home, we lived in the same town at the time, and it was a short drive back. Well, one day, on the drive home, I asked Sadie, I wonder if I'm going to see that guy that I always see standing in the road. And it wasn't until the words came out of my mouth out loud that I sort of realized how odd that sounded. And she kind of reacted like, what? And it was weird because I never thought much of it. But what had been happening is, over the last few months, I have had many different encounters with this individual. I would see this old man walking around in the middle of the road on a pretty busy street. Granted, it was the early morning hours. It was roughly 3:30 a.m. when I would see him. But he would walk through the street, and there were times when I even almost came close to hitting him with the car. Nothing too scary, but I would kind of see him and need to kind of swerve around. And just saying it out loud, even right now, is reminding me of how odd that is. So I don't see the guy on the way home, and I take Sadie home. I drop her off, and I have a thought to myself that is, next time I see this guy, this is weird, and I'm going to get a good look at him. So a few days go by. I'd say even a few weeks went by, and I took Sadie home, but I hadn't seen this guy ever since bringing it up. And it was almost as if just the notion of speaking about him altered the fabric of the universe so that he no longer was visible or something. It was very odd. So I'd say maybe a month or so had passed, and late one night, I was driving Sadie home again. And as I was driving down the road, the very road where I've seen this guy before many times, there he was. He was walking through the road. He has a slight limp. He would walk kind of in a zigzag pattern in the center of this busier road. And I almost didn't want to point him out to Sadie because I was actually genuinely nervous that she might not be able to see him or something. I don't know what I thought, but I pointed him out and she did see him, and she didn't think much of it. It's a little weird, but whatever. So I took her home, dropped her off, and on the way home I thought to myself, I am going to go back and get a good look at this guy. So I want to see what he looks like. I want to see his face. So I kind of pulled around the block and went a different direction I would normally go. And I came up behind him where he was walking along the shoulder of the road, and I saw him in the headlights up ahead. So I pulled up to him, and I pulled up really slow, and I just looked at him through the passenger window of the car. And I slowed right down, and I looked, and what I saw was an old man, but his face was pale, and his eyes were sunken in. And it really, to me, looked almost skeletal in a way. It seriously looked like what I might imagine like a corpse to look like. And I looked at him right in the face, and I slowed down and coasted by. But he didn't look at me. He didn't even acknowledge me. He didn't look at the car. He almost didn't even acknowledge the car's presence driving by him. And I was coming up pretty close to him. So I passed by, and I'm pretty freaked out by what I had seen. And then I looked straight ahead, and I realized that the road that I'm driving on is actually the very road that leads to the cemetery gate, which is the direction that he was walking. And I can see the cemetery gate up ahead. And I just kind of piece all these things together, and I go ahead and drive home. And on the way home, I remember thinking that I had made a terrible mistake, and that this guy, this whatever it was going to follow me home. Fortunately for me, that didn't happen. I drove Sadie home many times after that, but I never saw this guy again. And I don't know. You know, I don't know what I believe it was. I don't know if I saw what I wanted to see. Maybe he's just an old guy who goes on a nightly walk at 3:30 in the morning on a busy road that leads to the cemetery gates. Or maybe he's a ghost.
Thank you so much for that, Michael, and thank you to all of our wonderful storytellers this summer. I had a crazy idea to live out some midnight society dreams, and you guys made that a reality. Thank you. I cannot thank you enough for making my 90s spooky kid dreams come true. And to all of you guys who tuned in to listen to these amazing storytellers spin yarns of frightful wonder and terrifying goodness, thank you. Without you guys, who would have watched this nonsense? I appreciate all of you tuning in, and I appreciate the fact that I finally get to step away from this very hot fire in the middle of summer. Just because we're done doesn't mean the scares come to an end, so I'll leave you as I've left you every week this summer with this. Until next time, stay scared.